Welcome, everybody, to another Magick City Pagans podcast. Not really a meeting, I guess, because, well, we're all meeting online. Let's put it
Absolutely.
that way. So my name is Mitchell. And
I'm Bill.
And we're going to be talking about magical things tonight. That's sort of the theme of Magick City Pagans anyway. So
It is.
Sort of fits, you know.
It does help.
Yeah, be down to talk about, the weather. Although right now, that's pretty freaking crazy too. So, but tonight it's going to be about circles and sacred space and things relative to that concept. And of course, when we're talking about circles, we're not just talking about a circle. It could be multiple circles. It could be, why do we use a circle? How to circle, start. Why circle? And why a circle? Speaking of.
Because it's pretty.
It's pretty.
No,
I like its shape.
That right? So I think why they did a circle was, one, it was easier to draw. And even hundreds and thousands of years ago, people knew things ran in cycles, and they knew that it was a recurring, system. So I think they did that to kind of be in touch with nature that way and kind of honor nature and things by doing it in a circle. Plus, it has no start and it has no end.
Right. It's really very the Ouroboros kind of concept.
Right.
I was also sort of thinking about, because this is, why circle. I don't think it really was. Some people know. I don't know exactly why the circle, but how it focuses that energy. Because, as we're talking about a circle, we're really not talking about a circle. We're really talking more about a cone.
Right.
And as that cone's going up, the energy, if you just like anything, it's going to start concentrating it,
creating a focal point.
Right. And making it get stronger. So, because it's becoming more and more concentrated, because you're just like your garden hose. If you take your finger over the orifice, and the water shoots out, you create more pressure.
Right.
And essentially, I think that's what you're sort of doing. So they understood that concept, and it through history, you can see how that is definitely played in, like, the dunce hat.
I was about to say dunce caps, yeah.
The dunce caps, it's a cone. The wizard's hat, it's a cone. Harnessing that power.
Which is the traditional witches' hats.
Yeah, cone.
And about the dunce cap, it was not you're an idiot. It was to help focus your thoughts.
Yeah.
It was to help you to get to the right answers by focusing.
And it's funny because if you take, or intriguing, if you take the hat, the witch's hat or the magician's hat, it's got a point.
Mm-hmm.
The dunce cap generally doesn't. It always has an opening.
There's an opening so that energy can flow
out. And you concentrating and focusing. And so that whole concept of that. So this is, I think, a lot to do with, why circle. And of course, when you throw a circle, it's all about, boom, coming back in angles. Much like if you have a perfect triangle, equal sides. It's that bouncing that energy, trying to get it, into the center where you are. And of course, when you're creating a circle, we're talking about a liminal barrier. We're talking about, leaving the mundane and ending into the sacred space, the magical side, not necessarily the ethereal, but you're walking into that side of, that realm. And that's why you'll see certain places, they'll do like, the step with the left foot and do a full stern in the right foot. Some kind of, some do right, some do left. But it's the concept of as I'm stepping into that, I'm looking back at the mundane.
You're leaving it
behind. And then I do a circle because now I'm into that world. And of course, vice versa, when I'm going back, I'm re-entering the mundane world and I'm looking back into the ethereal.
Yeah, and some traditions and some practices, they do it, like they'll shed their cloaks or whatever as they're entering, because they're leaving that behind and going into that realm and into that sacred space that they've created.
Absolutely. The besom even.
Yes.
And often the besom was laid across because it created that doorway.
Which led to the thresholds, carrying the bride over the thresholds.
And of course, in some Wiccan traditions, you're cutting the circle. Right. You're creating that doorway, which is the whole premise of using your athame, to cut the ethereal plane. Because again, it's not that you're cutting the circle down here, you're cutting the circle up here. You're creating that door because it's a cone.
Yes.
So you're literally going like that and creating that doorway. So that's the ideology behind that aspect. Much like, if you're doing the step, it's really the same thing. You're creating that doorway for you, and closing it basically behind you.
Yeah, because you don't, a lot of people think that circles are meant just to keep things out. Well, they're also meant to keep things in.
And we'll talk about that a little bit also when we talk about the dual circles, the summoning circle, the manifest circle, the different names, it has.
Right.
But, there's a couple of great books. Ceremonial Circles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great book. It's a monolith by That's actually the three-hand. That's three-hand
That's
press.
3 hands.
Not so you can come across it. Does a great job of talking about the different circles, and of course, that's this whole focus is about those circles.
Yes.
So I thought it was a really cool book, and it's not a long read, like Martin's
Duffy.
Cauldron. Martin Duffy's Cauldron.
And the Devil's Raiments.
Devil Rainsman's, yeah. So a lot of information there.
Good
information.
One thing is, I think we ought to clarify about circles is there is a physical. There are different.
Right.
There's physical circles that you're actually laying out or drawing or cutting out in the earth or on the ground if it's above ground. Above ground, I mean just on the surface of wherever you're at, versus I don't want to say theoretical, but
an energetic
circle.
Yeah.
That you're not has no visible signs.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's one thing, even if you're doing like the physical circle, let's say you take a chalk or you take some type of device or material media to actually draw it out,
right?
You're still going to have to push the energy, and you'll see people walk around the edge and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they use an anathema, the wand, the staff, the sword, their hand. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they use a focal, and then sometimes you'll see the people sit in the middle and they'll push the rings out,
yes.
In waves and create that barrier. So even if you don't have a physical circle, you can still create the circle because you see it and you're creating and pushing the energy out. Granted, to see a circle definitely gives you an advantage because the visualization's right there already for you, but it is not necessary.
Correct.
Unless you're starting to do some more complex things. I would definitely say in the ceremonial magic, you want to have your circle.
You want to have a physical,
because that's a containment too at
Correct.
That point. So it's not just I'm going shielding up my protection up and I'm putting my energy in blocking, but there's also going to be some symbols and things you're doing with it that aid you in that, and that's why I think that circle really has to be there. Of course, again, like anything, this is our perspective on it. This is not the law of the land. This is not the way it's done. This is just how we do things or how we think about things, and like anything. Tomorrow I might read something new and go, oh, crap, I didn't think about that.
And for those of y'all that don't know, he has done that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm like, I read something like, holy crap. It resonates.
All right, let's do that.
Let's do that. It's like, I really sounds it. Sometimes it's like, okay, that didn't work out. Yeah. Or, that really worked well. That was just a good thing. And it's just like, I see the value of that.
Right.
And that's why we read all these books and we get talk to all these different people and we have these different perspectives because it does expose us to different things. We break our mindset that we're often stuck in.
We get out of the box and into the circle.
Right. Literally. So we're talking about so you have your primary circle, and of course there's different symbols you can put in your circle. There's different things depending on what you're doing, and you don't have to have any symbols.
No.
It all comes to what you're trying to accomplish and how you want to do it.
To me, it's a lot like either designing your altar or designing your spell work. It's a personal choice and what works for you without overcomplicating it and losing the intent and the meaning behind what you're doing. Absolutely. You could have a circle that's literally a couple of inches past your body inside, in a room doing some, I don't want to say simple spell work, but some less involved spell work, and be just as effective as someone who has a larger circle with different things and different symbols doing their work. You both have the same success rate.
Definitely, I think that really comes down to a lot is what you're trying to do, and
right.
If you're pulling something in, if you're doing evocation, or if you're doing invocation, trying to accomplish this, then. There's some more protocols that you're going to have to follow or should follow. You have to, but you might not like the results.
Right.
But let's talk about that. Okay. The circle.
Yeah.
The diameter. The radius.
Yes. That's a great debate.
Yeah, it really is. Because
how big is a circle supposed to be? Well, they say 9 foot, but what it is that's a 9-foot radius, which makes it an 18-foot diameter.
My theory is the circle should be big enough for you to do what you need to do.
Yep. To accomplish what you need to accomplish.
Now, don't get me wrong. If you can have an 18-foot circle, fantastic. Go for it. But the reality is, like I'm in this room, I'm not having an 18-foot circle in here.
Absolutely not.
Or I'm going to have probably a 6-foot circle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's going to be, or a 3-foot circle, because maybe I don't need that much room.
Well, and also you need to think about when designing your circle before you draw it out. Think about your ritual. Think about what you're doing. If you're going to do something like, let's say, not the wordless chant, but treading the mill, and you're going to do it on a 6-foot circle, 6-foot diameter circle, that's a lot different than doing it on an 18-foot diameter circle
or 45
or a
foot.
45 foot. And I can tell you from personal experience, as well as you well know, that will wear you out.
Yes.
And it takes a bit. And, I'm not in the greatest shape, y'all.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're doing that huge circle and you don't have that many people, but it's designed for a large group, but
Right.
you're only just a few of you. It's like, ooh, that's a lot of turf to cover.
That's
So
a bit. Yeah.
Definitely shrink that down.
Consider what you're doing. In your planning.
Yeah.
It's as much important about putting your circle down is as much to me as importance as what accoutrement I'm going to bring in or what I'm going to do in my spell work.
Exactly. And this may be an operative or this may be an honorific.
Absolutely.
So the honorific, I probably don't need quite as much room.
Right.
For the operative, I got a lot of stuff to do. I'm going to probably need a little more room. And
Yep.
of course, also, if I'm, in this case, let's say outside or on a solid surface,
Mhm.
then I'm drawing my circle and I'm going to put maybe the seal of something in there and I'll put some sigil work or maybe Olympic spirits or maybe adding some different aspects to it. I may need a lot more room,
Mhm.
And maybe there's 5 of us. Maybe it's just not me.
Yeah.
And so we all got to put these different symbols. I'm going to put a pentagram in the middle, making it a pinnacle. Depending if it's going to be a banishing or invoking, so I may want to put that in there. So will determine also what size I need
and how many.
and how many exactly. So that can make a big difference on
Absolutely.
what I need, especially believe it or not, you can't make it too small. And if let's say you got 7, 8 people and you're treading, a small circle is actually hard.
Yes, you will
because
run
you've
into
got
each
no
other.
room, and how you're trying to develop that energy and trying to build that up is really tough. So those are things you might want to think about when you're doing this. And so we're on that. Well, let's talk a little bit about the circle within the circle.
Okay.
So
why do we need a circle within a circle, Mitchell?
Well, it all depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
My favorite word. It depends.
Absolutely.
It's like, so, maybe, okay, perfect example.
Mhm.
Let's do the seal of Michael.
Okay.
It's a circle within a circle.
Yes, it is.
So you have those things, different things on the outside.
Mhm.
Same thing. If I'm doing one with a pentacle in the middle of it, maybe I need to be able to put some stuff on the outside. Maybe that's where I want to tread. And depending on what we're doing will depend on how big that inner circle is.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm going to put some spell work. So let's say I have my cauldron. Well, I don't need a very big circle. Hell, the cauldron makes the circle.
Yes.
So I may be treading around that, or I can put the circle, or maybe I need, a lot more room because there's more things going on. So it really, that comes down to we keep saying what you're doing makes a big difference, but that is another type where you have a circle within a circle.
Mhm.
I mean, technically you can do circle, depending what you're trying to do and
Yes.
where you want to put maybe certain symbols, different sigils, because obviously when we're trying to create that environment, we're trying to create an environment of success.
Mhm.
We're trying to be successful. So we want to put certain symbols of, maybe I need Saturn's help or maybe Jupiter or Mercury. So I may not only just put the, astrological symbol,
Right.
but maybe the planetary aspects. Maybe I need that character or the intelligence,
Right.
And put that in there, or the, intelligence, character, spirit.
Spirit.
Try to put out spirit, So, and put those symbols within that realm. But I don't need them necessarily on the outside, but maybe I need them on the inside. Or maybe I want them further on the outside because maybe I'm focusing different things there.
And that was what I think is the way I think of it when you have, let's say, a dual circle, a dual working circle, that you're building those layers and, coming in from outside in. Like I would put on the outside, I would put, the astrological, like my planetary on the outside, the strongest energy that I have on the outside. And then as I got closer, maybe my sigils, or if it's me and you, our sigils on the inner ring, and then the sigil work or cauldron of what we're doing, our focal point in the center, so that it increases that energy coming in and that cone effect.
Yeah, exactly, that whole cone thing. So you can look at that building and building and building.
Absolutely.
And sort of like in layers you're coming through. So definitely
you're building layers.
Right.
Layers of energy. One of my personal favorite sets of dual circles is when focusing energy and sending it to a receptacle.
So that'd be like bringing in now a manifesting
Right.
circle or a summoning circle, all the different names that it has.
Right.
But that's literally you take a big, you're in one circle
Mm-hmm.
and you're creating a separate circle.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's separate circle.
Right.
And I'm going to raise energy in this one and send it to this one, or I'm actually going to invoke, or in this case, technically evoke. So it's invoking into the circle.
Yes.
So technically, I guess that would be
Calling.
Yeah, calling, summoning,
Mm-hmm.
And that is often for the summoning aspect is to keep you safe. You're not putting it in the same place as you.
Right.
Whatever spirit or whatever you're trying to work with. So if it's a spirit, it's an entity, whatever. Servitor, you're creating that and keeping that in a separate containment field
Mm-hmm.
away from you, because sometimes you don't. Well, not sometimes. I would never pull something in necessarily with me.
Right.
That I'm especially. It makes me
unknown.
The unknown. That little. Of course, some people invoke different ones, and of course, that one you have to. If you're going to invoke it into you, then you're definitely going to have to, be in that same circle. But that's personal choice.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but I like those because of the symmetry between the circles, making them the same, so that the energy, it's, you create not a physical bridge, but a energetic and ethereal bridge between the two. They mirroring each other, so that when you casting your energy from one to the other,
it's happening there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's maybe we're charging a candle,
mm-hmm.
And that's of course maybe you have a group and they're treading, and you have the one person who's going to be the vessel or the sender, and they're going to focal point, raise that energy. And they're going to be ones that are going to send. And unlike where if you have we're going to say just a candle, right?
Okay.
So you have a candle, and let's say we have one circle, and then we have a small circle within the circle. And we have a candle there,
mm-hmm.
and we're treading around it. We're all pushing energy into that,
mm-hmm.
whether it's a cauldron, whatever.
Right.
This case, we have a separate circle, physically outside the other circle,
mm-hmm.
in that we're treading or raising energy in the big circle and pushing it into the other circle, which gives us that, I'm not saying, I'm looking at it more as, hey, I'm really pushing energy into, not that's going to be stronger, but into a contained area.
Mm-hmm.
Often while I'll use a triangle,
mm-hmm.
Even in that. So it's, it's that equal triangle. So energy is bouncing, think of a laser.
Yep. From all directions.
All directions, focusing that energy into the object. So, even like if you're going to try maybe do a banishment,
mm-hmm.
And you're working on this, and okay, so maybe I have something I feel an attachment to me. So I'm going to create the other circle, and I'm going to put something in that, maybe that circle that represents me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try to take that attachment and put it and focus it into that. So it goes to there,
mm-hmm.
and it's contained.
Right. And then I can deal with it from there.
Right. So,
I just like those when it comes to dual circles. The concept of it was, for me, was really easy to grasp. I mean, it was, and I liked it. It's not something that I do personally, solely, I should say. Not something I do solely. That's something that I've done and enjoy doing much more with a larger group of people, because not only do you have more energy and higher energy vibrations, but it just makes it that much better. That much, it just does to me.
You can definitely feel that power.
You can.
That's one of the big things. You got to, whether it's a group. I'm not saying go find a group. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But if I'm by myself and I'm raising energy, okay, I can feel that. But when you have a group and they're raising energy and I'm tapping that energy and I'm pulling it, you can definitely feel the level, and whether you're doing a chant or a wordless chant or whatever,
mm-hmm.
But you can feel that extra energy because you're right. You got maybe 5 other individuals and you're just boom, and you can feel it and you're shoving that into another object. It's definitely a vibe that's pretty impressive.
It is. And it also tends to give you a sense of success and accomplishment.
It does, especially when you hit it.
Yeah, when you hit it,
you're like, boom, you're like, ooh, all the hair stands up. You're like, boom, you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Kind of like that. Yeah.
Like, got it. So I think we've all had those
moments.
Things. Now we've been talking about the circle, but we haven't really talked about a sacred space.
Okay.
And does sacred space have to be a circle?
No, sir.
No, it doesn't.
I don't believe it does. In my opinion, sacred space is not limited to a circle.
I agree. A sacred space to me is an area designated of, well, besides being sacred, it is definitely one of those places where I do things,
mm-hmm.
and it may be a room. This is my sacred space. Now I may draw a circle within that sacred space.
Right.
And yes, when you're drawing a circle, you are creating sacred space. But to me, it's sort of like a circle is sacred space, but sacred space is not a circle.
Correct.
It's
kind of like, not all pagans are witches,
correct.
But all witches are pagans.
Well, yeah, we get that. That's a whole different debate.
But
we won't jump on that one. I agree. We're not going to jump on that one because there'll be people arguing that until we're all dead.
Right.
It's like, okay.
When sacred space to me is, if I'm going to do sacred space, say, I'm going to make some soap. So I'm going to go around my house first, creating that barrier and that sacred space of my dwelling. And then each individual room I'm going to be working in or potentially going to, I'm going to cleanse those as well. But when it comes down to the actual work, I'm going to, focus that in one room, and I may draw a circle in that room. So I have, I have sacred area,
mm-hmm.
and then I have my sacred space.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just, I know it's semantics, but to me,
I don't think it's just semantics. I mean, there's, in sacred space, to me, that's where the operative we're doing.
Yep.
Not that you can't do the other things. I mean, it's just, I think, points of perspective there. But I have a sacred area. This is where I build and I do, but I only do that in here. I don't come in build, in
the bedroom.
Well, I mean, it's like, I'm going to build a birdhouse today. Well, I'm not going to go down into my sacred area and build a birdhouse unless the birdhouse was going to be used in a ritual.
Right.
Or some magical aspect, whether it's honorific or operative.
Right.
But if I'm coming down, let's say I'm making a wand.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be my sacred area, that this is the only place I do that. These tools, this is only, I use them for only this.
Mm-hmm.
And some people go, well, you don't have to do that. You're right. You don't have to do that. But for me, if I designate, it's like, okay, if I have a pen, I can go buy a ballpoint pen,
mm-hmm.
or let's say felt tip, whatever. And I'm going to make this pen sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's only sacred because I'm going to make it that way, but I'm only going to use it to write in my grimoire.
Right.
My book of shadows. So
mm-hmm.
only time I use that pen is to write spell work or this. Well, that pen becomes that sacred tool now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just a big ballpoint or felt tip pen.
It is, but it's the energy that you've attached to it.
Right.
And the more, you're going to build that egregore within that pen.
Which your sacred space or sacred area does the same thing.
Yep.
If all I ever do in this area, and as I make stuff that deals with my craft,
mm-hmm.
well, I'm building an egregore. Then I'm going to take that, and I got my sacred space, and I'm going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you can definitely make the whole damn thing sacred space.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. It's just how you want to segment. If you want to segment it, personal flavor.
Yep.
Of course, that's one of the big things that in the witchcraft community, magic community.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about personal, and that's the beauty of it, is because it's so individualistic.
It is.
I like that aspect, and that's always just been something that's always drawn me to it. That it's like, hey, this is how I do it. Don't do it that way. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think people get hung up on, the one way or the right way or whatever. The way that works for you is the right way.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, since I know we're broadcasting overseas
mm-hmm.
across the pond.
Yes.
There's a difference between, by the way, being in Alabama, the Bible Belt, and I think a lot of times here we definitely have that avoidance of the Christianity background.
Correct.
Almost all of us have had.
Yeah. I
don't know many people. I mean, I do now growing up, they're teenagers, but my age of that, I didn't know anybody that wasn't Christian at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the Bible Belt, it gets shoved down your throat pretty hard. I mean, even versus like Massachusetts, where it's much more laid back, here, not so much.
Right.
So I think we tend to have an aversion to that, the dogma, the structure. It's like, I wanted that, I go to church. Yeah. I'm not saying that sometimes it's not necessary, but I think we definitely here have an aversion. So a lot of times when we're talking about, if you're over in England or UK, wherever, that there's a concept here of the rigidness,
mm-hmm.
Of certain religions.
And using that sacred space and drawing on their energies.
Right. So it can be definitely, so sometimes when just keep that in mind, that's where you got to think where certain things are coming from.
Yeah.
And, so we adapt and we work, but it'll have an effect. It'll have an influence on how we respond and do certain things.
Yes.
Certain things go, oh, well, of course we do this. Well, we're like, no, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's too much like that.
Uh-huh.
Wherever in England, they're like, of course we do it.
Yeah.
They're like, it's just how it is.
It's just a geographical difference.
Yeah. And, influences,
Yeah.
I look at it, Europe's already been through this a lot, about 400 or 500 years ago.
Yeah.
We're still caught up in it. We're shedding it off now. That's the big thing. You can feel that shift. But as we talk about, sacred space, man, we went off that rail, didn't we?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's okay. Chase the rabbit, down the rabbit hole. Different book. All right. So, as we're creating that sacred space and we're creating that environment to do what we're doing, it is, like I said before, it could be a circle. It doesn't have to be a circle. It's a sacred space. It's, are you going to do honorific, operative? It's the idea is that you're keeping that set for certain things.
Yes.
Whatever those things are, and of course we look at it as, okay, sacred is going to be something to do with our craft. Not necessarily, but that's how I'm going to look at it anyway.
Right.
That, okay, this is what I do. This is where I do things. I have my room designated for this, and this is what I do, and this is all the thing I do in this room.
Right.
If you're lucky enough to have that. Some people don't have that. Some people are gonna, at one point I had a hardwood floor. It was my living room. I moved all my stuff over. I drew my circle and I put my candles up. And I set my altars up, and that's where I did it.
Yep.
It became that sacred space, but it was only temporary.
Right.
And then I'd break it down. Now it's still in egregore, but I'd build, take it and break it down. Luckily now I can actually have a place where I can keep a permanent circle.
Right.
So
permanent sacred space.
Right.
I want to touch on for a minute, because you've mentioned it several times, an honorific and operific circles. So first off, operific is one where you're actually doing the work.
Yeah.
Like where you're doing your spell work, you're creating something, or you're dismantling something.
Operating.
You are operating, versus an honorific circle would be where you are paying homage to. That could be to ancestors, it could be to a deity, it could be to nature, it could be to where you're honoring.
And
something.
often they're both. As you think a typical, let's say, public ritual.
Yep.
We'll follow the basic format. You cleanse, you draw, you cleanse, we enter, we challenge, you call your quarters. Here's the honoring part. We call the deities, if we're going to call the divine,
right,
or the spirits. There's your honor. Then we're going to do often like the statement of purpose. Now we're going from one to the operative. Now we're doing our spell work. We're doing it, raising energy, chanting, all that. That's the operative, because we're actually doing spell work. It's the operative aspect of it. And that's not saying you can't do operative work and honoring at the same time, because if I'm working with a deity, if I'm doing that, then it would be sort of both.
Yep.
It's just
they can coexist.
They can coexist.
Or they can be separate, or they can be individual.
Shoot, you can even create two circles where you do all the honoring, you do all the calling in this one, and you whatever, if you're going to deal with whatever you're dealing with, and then you cross into the other circle. And generally these touch.
Kind of like a figure eight kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of figure eight. And then I do all the actual magical work in this one. Then I come back into this one and finish up.
Yep.
So
just letting you know that they can, that you can do one or the other, or a combination of both.
Yeah. It's just what you're going to do. But those are the terms we're using. That's why you hear that, especially the operative and the honorific. People are like, honorific? Yeah, trust me, we didn't make it up. Or did I? No.
That's not one of his made-up words.
No,
there are plenty, but that's not one of them.
That is not one of them. One of those things are read.
Right.
Reading's important. All right, so we've gone through sacred space. We've talked about the different circles. You want to touch up on anything real quick?
The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is just a couple of tips.
Okay.
For outside drawing circles.
Oh, yeah.
Cornstarch is a wonderful medium, because it has a little bit of an luminescence and kind of glows a little bit in moonlight. Yeah. Also, when it rains, it will wash it away and it won't harm the environment.
Right.
Using salt.
Yeah, people just had this discussion in classes the other day where teachers goes, "Oh, use salt." And I go, "What are you using on the grass?" Well, you just kill the grass.
Yeah, salt will kill your grass. Also, not easy to get out of your carpet, and horrible for hardwood floors.
I was just say, because we're upstairs,
right?
Upstairs where I teach classes, they do circles. Go, so what are we going to use? So you go, salt. I go, not on my hardwood floors. You're not.
Yeah, no.
It's like, scratch the crap out of them. They're already taking a beating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, nope. And let's be fair, if you can use brick dust, that's a lot of brick.
That really is. You
That's
have
it's
you need
lot
a
of work.
small circle for that one.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can use, like I said, cornstarch. What's that stuff that you put? The chalk, like that you would use for a chalk line.
Yeah.
Is really good if you want something non-permanent and outside.
I've actually used landscaping paint before.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, it takes a little while for it to go away, but as the grass grows, you cut it. Grass, eventually, it's gone. Well, that's what they do. The whole landscaping thing. So I actually did one pretty big one. And of course, all the symbols, everything. I used red landscaping paint. I was like,
of course, you used red.
Yeah. So it's like the grass, and it took about 3 weeks for it to be totally gone. But the grass would grow, cut it, and it was gone. And that's another thing I was talking to him about. If you have land and you have a house and you have a yard that's feasible for this, you can actually take your lawnmower, you cut your grass and then lower it and cut another circle. So you actually have a circle there that will grow back in,
a couple weeks,
yeah, or a week. It'd be like, if you're standing up above you, you go, oh yeah, but most people will never see it.
Yep. From looking straight on, you'll never see it. It's like, and cutting a path to your circle.
Yeah.
Can do that with your lawnmower. But I highly recommend not using salt outside. Yeah. It's just one of those things, I wouldn't even use it on asphalt. Like if I had, or on concrete, if I had my driveway.
I just don't use salt anymore. At one point it's like, oh, you use salt. I was like, but I'm like, I'm on carpet and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's just, no. Salt, it's great. And it's very protective, which is why you use it.
Yes.
And it's a great, thing, but environmentally,
it's not good.
And if you're on dirt, go for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing there to kill.
Right. If it's just sand.
Salt of the earth.
You got anything that you?
We talked about, cornstarch is what I mainly use most of my time because I do like that. It also, if you use black lights, it'll glow. It definitely has that ultraviolet effect.
Better to use it outside than inside.
Yes, because it is still cornstarch and it's still a pain in the butt to get up.
Yeah.
See, I used it back over here.
Although inside you could use something like the carpet cleaner.
I'd say you can use carpet cleaner. You can use
something that's designed to be put on your carpet.
I would, put it bluntly, if I got carpet cleaner or baking soda or something like that, because you can use baking soda, I'd bless it first.
I would, and I would, if you're going to use salt in anything, not necessarily your circles,
it still needs to be blessed.
I would not use kosher salt.
No. I actually use sea salt.
Yep.
So,
and a lot of folks don't think about that. Oh, I got plenty of salt. Yes, that's kosher salt. Well, what makes it kosher?
Unless you're working with the Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm doing the Seal of Solomon.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go for it.
Got to call them all 72.
That's right. Then of course, I might use kosher, but not for
not for
I would use sea salt or maybe even black salt.
Yeah.
If you can afford it. But anytime you're using salt, the problem is just destructive, and getting it out of your carpet can be a bit of a challenge if you have carpet. Now, if you have linoleum floors, go for it.
Yeah. One last thing on, we talked about the circle being a cone, and in my mind, when I see that, I not only see it going from the ground up, but I also see it going from the ground down. And that's something that you might want to consider is, it's like everything, it's, as above, so below kind of thing.
Right.
So it's basically a mirror.
Yeah.
And you just have to be standing on the surface of that mirror.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to think that it's only from you up. It's also from you down.
Yeah. All right, man. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely.
This is Magick City Pagans at Books, Beans, and Candles, and just a couple of things that are coming up.
Yes.
We do have the Psychic Fair coming up at the end of September 24th. Ellen Dugan, the author of Natural Witchery and Protective Magic, she's actually going to be here on Friday teaching a class on modern witchcraft. Modern witchcraft in
traditional witchcraft in the modern
world.
days.
Man, I totally got that backwards, didn't I? Dyslexic today. All right, so she'll be here doing that. Of course, she's doing a book signing, and of course, she'll be doing at the Psychic Fair. And then after that, we have the Witches Ball, which is a big party we put on every year. It's going to be October 22nd. So if you're in the area, we'd love to have you for the psychic fair. And the way we do that is you just come in, you purchase a ticket. We have different readers, palmistry, astrology, all the different things. And you come in, and what really happens, you just buy a ticket. They're just $15 a ticket, and that's for a 10-minute reading. So if something, it's gives you like a taste, I like this. And then if something, I really like that, then you can come back and go, I really get more in depth about it. Especially like the astrology and things like that, which take much longer.
Yeah.
We have Reiki, so you're going to have your cleansings and your chakra bouncings, but again, that's something you come back and go, I really like that. I want a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I want a little more info
meat to it. Right. And of course, the Witch's Ball, that's just a big party we put on. It's, we're going to be at Trim Tab venue.
Yep.
So
their event space.
Event space. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And those tickets are only $15.
And they're at the door this year.
Yes. We are doing pre-sales, which is another reason why we keep them $15.
Yes.
Because we're not having to cut the cost and give them, Eventbrite or whoever else a share of it. We're just trying to keep it. And we are taking cards and cash, so you don't have to have cash. So we'll be able to do all that, and you just get there. And we have a big party, a DJ, and lots of fun.
Absolutely.
This is the 18th year we've done this.
That's a long time.
Yeah, we've been the 19th, but COVID sort of kicked us in the ass that year.
Right.
So.
It's the 19th year of having a Witch's Ball. It's the 18th Witch's Ball.
Correct.
Yes.
So, all right, guys, I can't get anything else, man.
I'm good. Thank you very much. I guess we'll see you guys next month.
That's right. And remember, Tea and Tarot comes up soon. It's first week Friday. Thank you very much.